Namaste. Myself, Dr. Soumya Vallanavat. I'm a chief consultant at Diabetes Reversal Clinic, Jainata Pati. I'm over here today to talk on a topic, sexual dysfunction and diabetes. So most of the people, whenever they get diagnosed with diabetes, especially boys below 35 years, they will be always have a concern that would affect their sexual life. I would say it's all the time, yes, or it's not all the time mandatory every individual, whoever is suffering from diabetes. But that varies from an individual to individual and the severity of the diabetes or the sugar levels and the symptoms they are suffering from. But among the symptoms, sexual dysfunction due to diabetes is also one of the major concerns and the problem in their day-to-day routine. So let me just explain you. Usually the people think only the erectile dysfunction is a concern most of the time when they are suffering from diabetes, because that starts as a very primary symptom in males. Generally, the erection would take time than the normal the sexual lives they had before diagnosing or before started with the diabetes life. So they have generally, for example, if the erection would take or it would last long for more than 2 to 5 minutes or up to 10 minutes, that would decrease to 2 minutes, or they could be a faster ejaculation. And when it comes to diabetes and sexual dysfunction, it's not only that particular it would affect male sexual organs or the functionality of the male organs, reproductive organs. No, it affects the female who is suffering from diabetes. So let me just list out few for you. So we call it as, there are like majorly we call, that's a general one is like vaginal dryness. So on a diabetes patient, how they develop like a mouth dryness, their body hydration levels would be less. So they would also have a kind of, the secretion starts reducing, because the secretion, vaginal secretion majorly comes because of the hormonal changes in your body, or when you're going about intimacy by your partner or aroused insights, depending on the hormonal changes in your body, the person starts with a particular vaginal discharge. So that is majorly affected, as we all know. Insulin is also a hormone which is related to our endocrine system. So the most of the time they do start with the vaginal dryness. I would say they would be find the a fungal condition that starts affecting the woman. That is the other commonly seen in the women diabetic patients. That is, they see how do you get maybe other fungal infection between your fingers, foot ulcers kind. It's not exactly ulcer, but the diabetes patients generally have, whenever they, for example, they stand in a water for more than 15 minutes. A general person, most of a non-diabetic patient who stands in a water for more than an hour, or he works in the water, still there won't be any kind of a fungal infection. But the diabetic patients are very much prone to develop that particular allergy kind in between, and then later the fungus starts moving, and it could be very recurrent. They feel like once it has been treated with any kind of antifungal applications or antibiotics, still they are very much born in the same way. The vaginal fungal infection starts becoming very frequent along with the UTI. That is more seen in the nondiabetic sexual dysfunction. I would say those are the primary one. The major things I would say there are another two to three, what we call it as hypoactive sexual disease disorder. That is a very common that could also happen in men as well. That is like lack of interest, or your partner has to push you towards that. So there is definitely a hypoactivity. Anything which is like less than the normal activeness it requires to have the normal sexual life. That is also what happens with ladies who is suffering from diabetes. And female sexual arousal disorder, that we also call it as the cognitive arousal disorder and genital arousal disorder. So, for example, they have then emotional sustainability of that arousal for the ladies starts becoming more difficult when they are suffering from a diabetes. So, sometimes they might get arousal, but that the maintaining of that particular arousal timing or enjoying that particular emotion would be a problem. I mean, their emotion just drops down suddenly with no, as such, any other intervention or as such, there is no other cause. So that does happen with the female patient who is suffering from diabetes. That is like, I would say, emotional arousal response starts decreasing. And the genital arousal also. So they might take that particular time, like they used to get an arousal of but the time, and that's how, so it would take longer. So their emotional response starts reducing. So that would definitely affect their sexual life with the partner. And there is one more triform is persistent genital arousal disorder. That is yet kind of some unwanted or intrusive feeling of that particular genital arousal. This is a bit less common, but yeah, you should like as a daughter, if a lady starts it, then more particular if they have a very a keen observation, they'll be able to make the difference between that emotional arousal or the organ arousal, the response, that sexual arousal related to the organ, or it is with the erection, but otherwise they just feel that, but we categorize in that way. And kind of orgasm disorder. So these are the major sexual dysfunction which a female person who is suffering from a diabetes has to face. And most of the time, the female starts hiding these things from the doctors because they are confused whether it's that because of my diabetes or not. So I'm just making that awareness. So this is all the part of the diabetes symptoms. How would it affect your sexual dysfunction or your talking about the sexual dysfunction related with the woman. Whenever male person suffering from a diabetes, we always have a chances or he is more prone to develop an erectile dysfunction compared to a non-diabetic patient at least 10 to 15 years prior. So for example, if a non-diabetic person who develops an erectile dysfunction post 45 or 50 years, it's not mandatory. Yeah, erectile dysfunction if at all is suffering. But when it comes to a diabetic person, then if they always have at least 10 years early developing an erectile dysfunction. So that could be a main concern. But most of the diabetic patients will always suffer with a premature ejaculation or an erectile dysfunction as well. And why does this happen? And there is also we call it as diabetic neuropathy. In that, also the blood vessel supply or the nerve supply to your private organs, the reproductive organs, or let's say the sexual organs, once the circulation starts reducing and the nerve starts getting affected, there will be a poor circulation to your genitals or the penis. So then also they have a erectile dysfunction, and that they also start with when it is untreated for a longer duration, they will also start with something called they start losing the sensation of that particular genital. So that is also becomes a very concerning male sexual dysfunction. So that will not happen like initially, but it starts initially. What they see is generally the erectile dysfunction or the ejaculation issue. And I would say once if we start going through this, what with the hormones, you are let's say the testosterone, it starts getting affected how your sugar levels are being maintained. So that is also concern. So we are symptom. But the erectile dysfunction could be positive in the person who has, let's say, in the fasting is like around 150. He might have it, but that could be a mild dysfunction. But the person who has it upper 400 or 50, he might have a severe dysfunction. He would never get the erection at all because the nerve supply or the blood supply to that particular organ is already, and he's already started losing the sensation of the organs. So this is about the male and female sexual dysfunction when it comes to diabetes, the patients who are suffering from diabetes. And I will go to tell you the common dysfunctions which the both male and female would face when they're suffering from diabetes. Before that, I'd also let you know, like, there are risk factors which could actually contribute directly on these symptoms. With sexual dysfunction with diabetes, which are the poor diet, the people who just don't concern about it. Like, even though they are getting treated for diabetes and they're having medication, but they are really managing a poor diet. Second thing is on-board intake. How frequently they are taking. See, there are people like diabetic patients who is on all over. I would say them for it, but you should know quantity and the quality what you're taking. And the people who is very much attached to this smoking, or could be there already under anxiety, depression. These are all the risk factors which would trigger your sexual dysfunction when you're suffering from that, I guess. So let me just tell you, we start the dysfunction is common in both males and females. Majorly the obesity. So obesity, the people who are suffering along with the diabetes have more for erectile dysfunction and the arousal issues. That's a female and male. So both having obesity will always have a effect on their sexual life. Second concern is, coming to this insulin pump. So the patients who are using exactly this insulin pump, so those users will not be as profitable when they are going with their sexual routine. So they will be very much conscious, and they emotionally, it doesn't happen, but initially it starts really the concern. The insulin starts popping depending on the calories you burn or whatever it is being implanted. And later it starts getting attached to your emotions, and they start losing interest in the sexual life because they're not comfortable with each other. The person, especially who is using the insulin pumps, that would also affect your sexual life. And definitely the hormonal changes like testosterone and the estrogen, the quantity your body requires to have a normal sexual life, and definitely it is being affected. So when it starts reducing, so this harness, so then also both male and female partners would suffer from that. Yes, and poor blood flow, as I already mentioned, that could happen in both the people, male and female, both of them. Then also they will have a lesser circulation to their reproductive organs, genitals, then also the arousal related or erection related would arise. That is also a common sexual dysfunction what we see. And I would see the nerve damage, that is very much like if the tonifier sugar levels are really, really high, then they will definitely have a diminished that section that intercourse interest would start reducing in both the people. So, and they will not be even able to understand why is that happening. And it eventually, once it happens, twice it happens, and then the partner starts withdrawing. They hesitate to ask or intimidate the other partner. Either of the partner would get be diabetic, or either one of the partner would be diabetic. So then the life becomes really difficult. That's how that emotionally they start going weak because of this sexual dysfunction, which they are not able to face each other's needs. So these are the major medical symptoms you could expect when you are suffering from a diabetes, and which would affect your sexual dysfunction. So what are the consequences of this? So the patients ask, like, I would say, I hardly get 20 to 30% of the patients, especially females, would never ever share these things with the doctor. They see diabetes is only a metabolic disease and a lifestyle disease. So when I correct the diet chart, when I start doing the proper exercises, I don't need to worry anymore about the sugar levels. Then everything starts to normalcy. See, you have to understand. For example, you really had a high blood sugar, and your blood flow and the nerve damage has already happened to a particular organs, or let's say your genitals, and that has already led you to an uneasy dysfunction. So if that has happened, then how would you correct that? Unless you won't share it, we can target that, or we can actually specifically put you on a medications, or we can also tell you daily routines or the habits or particular asanas to improvise the blood flow to that particular organs. See, at least you won't share with us. So when we're giving you a way to take care of your other sugar levels. Yes, I agree. Once the sugar levels comes down, we should start feeling better. There is no doubt in it. But before that happens, unless you don't share it, we won't be able to support you further. I'm talking concern with the female dysfunction. And coming to male side, we see at least 40 to 50% of the people complains there is not a complete erectile dysfunction. They would be suffering from at least a mind. They see like a lot of it doesn't happen every week or something. It happens monthly once, but they really need it, and the erection would never happen. So once it happens with your partner, then the person with the diabetic partner, he'll be always afraid to approach the partner the next time. And maybe it has happened like the couples below 35, if at all they are planning for a conception also, that would be female or male. Either of them is a diabetic. The non-diabetic partner would always look at you like, you are not able to pick it up with me, or you're not able to follow up with the needs I needed. So that's where I would say emotional Cold War starts. Then gradually both becoming emotionally so attached, and emotionally this internal fight starts, and then this way there are many relationships starts detaching. I would say there are cases where got separated only because of the diabetes, but they say these diabetes are absolutely too infertile. I won't say all diabetic patients would be infertile. There is always a solution for it. The problem with the patients is they would never see actual problem what they are suffering from, that is majorly a sexual dysfunction, which is happening in the day-to-day routine, which they would never okay to share with their consultant, okay to share with their doctor, and to get it addressed. And please understand, if either of your partner, anybody at your home, if is suffering from a diabetes, however, they have all other symptoms like maybe your increased thirst, increased hunger, or giddiness, lethargic feeling, this numbness, all these symptoms, in the same way they will also have a sexual dysfunction and they're suffering from diabetes. So you are the one who have to understand, and please make sure you are expressing to your doctor that you are addressing the surgeon. That's not a big problem. It can be addressed. All the time it can be addressed. Provided you need to open up and see how severe it is and how severely it is affecting your relationship. So if it is really affecting your everyday sexual life, then it is very much necessary, because I always say for the bill for achievement, it's when you have a hormone, when you have an endocrine system in your body, there is no, like, how you need a food, water, how you pass functions every day, how you have an appetite. So your body will also create for a physical sexual approach from the other partner, but an opposite sex. So it is nothing wrong. Your body demands to that, and you should always make sure you provide that. The only thing is, when you have a problem, then you should make sure that you are getting, discussing with your doctor and take to it. There is medications to bring that. Instead of that, the only, especially the Indian patients, what I see is they would never share those things. We keep asking them, do you have any other symptoms? So when I do ask my patients, do you have any difficulty to be with your partner, or do you have any physical issues? They say, no, doctor, that's absolutely right. And people think like once you have a baby, then it is okay that if you started with a sexual dysfunction. Definitely it is not okay. So when you see the time you're having your lives, you need to calm down. You want to come out of your stress. Then also, sex is also one of the relaxation, which would actually get you into a more, in a way, it works as a antidepressants. Sometimes there are people who have come out of the depression when they have been exposed to low love and decay. So this is about the sexual dysfunction and the diabetes. So it would always make sure you open up to your doctor and say that is where I have spoke about this. The female would also suffer from it. Male would also suffer from it. It is not necessary. You should always say it to your doctor with front of the partner itself. You can also take the first one consultations and share it, and definitely it can be treated. So don't leave that into relationship complications or any kind of depression and anxiety. And or other things, the treatment part also I have discussed in my other videos. Thank you.